Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I am talking about the most important story that you will ever tell yourself. My name is Hedley Derenzie. I am a qualified life coach, adult educator, and author. I am also super passionate about the amazing teachings of the law of assumption as originally taught by the wonderful Neville. It is the stories we tell that create our life. So if you want to change your life, then you have to change the story. And if you want to create the most amazing life, then you need to know how to tell the most amazing stories. And that is why I am here. I am a storyteller. I'm passionate about stories. And since finding the law of assumption, I am telling myself much better stories and seeing the results show up in my life. And I want to help you to do the same. So if you would like further support with this, I am available for one-on-one coaching or email coaching, and those details are in the box below. And you can also stay connected with me on my socials, and those details are in the box below as well. All right, let's get into this. Okay, so today we are talking about the most important story that you will ever tell in your entire life. I know, it sounds dramatic, but it's true, because it is the stories that we tell that create our reality, because reality is just an expression of consciousness. So the stories that we tell are what create our consciousness that then gets reflected back. So you're probably wondering what the most important story that you'll ever tell is, and perhaps you've already guessed it. The most important story that you will ever tell in your entire life is the story you tell about yourself. Drum roll. Amazing. It is true. The story that you tell about yourself is the story that will get reflected back to you in the people, the situations, the circumstances, the events that show up in your reality, in all areas of your life. In law of assumption, this is called your self-concept. Self-concept is different to self-love, and I might leave that alone because that's probably a whole other video. But your self-concept is the story that you have about yourself. And what is a story? What makes up a story? A story is simply made up of thoughts that have become beliefs, because beliefs are just thoughts that you've had enough times for them to be embedded. In other words, an assumption. The law of assumption. It's not the law of stories. Could be. The stories that you tell about yourself, it is the most important story that you will ever tell, because it is the story that will govern your reality. And the thing about our story, our self-concept, the story that we have about ourselves, is for most of us, if not all of us, it is inherited from our upbringing when we didn't know about this. Because when we are babies and young kids, our entire world is outside of us. We don't yet have the capacity to reflect. We don't have the sense, the consciousness. So we are completely driven by our external environment, and that makes sense because our survival is based on it. We have to be able to read the external environment in order to survive. We need to know what our mothers are doing, our fathers are doing, our caretakers are doing. So we're constantly looking outside of ourselves to validate us and to sense danger and to get a sense of this new environment in which we're in. So it makes sense that our stories that we have about ourselves as adults have been inherited from when we were babies and young kids, and they are inherited from how we viewed other people's reactions to us. So for example, if you had an upbringing in which one of your caretakers was not present or unavailable or not even there, just somewhere else, not in your life, you might have a story about yourself, because kids are very self-focused. As kids, we can't rationalize. We don't have that capacity yet. So therefore, anything that happens in our reality is directly related to us. So if a parent is not available or they leave, as a child, we make up the story that that's because of us, that we must have done something wrong, that we're bad, that we're unworthy, that we're unlovable, whatever it is, because we don't have the capacity to rationalize that, well, this person went away because of this. So that's just one example. The stories that we have as adults, the stories that we have about ourselves as adults, were inherited by our experiences as children and babies. When our brains are very much in the subconscious mode, we don't have a conscious mind that enables us to rationalize and make sense of things. We simply take on everything that is in our external world, and then we make it about ourselves. And so for most of us, or a lot of us, we have inherited some pretty negative stories about ourselves based on our experiences when we were growing up. And we have carried those stories into adulthood, not realizing that it is those stories that are creating our realities and getting reflected back in the people, places, the situations, the events, whatever it is, the circumstances that show up in our life. Once we can understand that, then we can look at it and go, okay, well, what is the quality of the story that I'm telling about myself? Because most of us don't even know we have a story about ourselves. We just go about life just thinking that's the way things are, not realizing that it is that story that is getting reflected back in our reality, in the circumstances that we experience in our day-to-day life. So if you're kind of going, well, what's the story I have about myself? And you're not sure, all you need to do is to look at your reality, because reality is the most honest feedback about who you believe yourself to be that you will ever have. Your reality is teaching you about you based on what is in your consciousness, which is getting pushed out and reflected back. Reality is the most brilliant teacher you will ever have, more brilliant than the most brilliant teacher out there. Your reality will tell you everything that you need to know about the stories that you are telling. So if you want to know if you have a high quality story about yourself, or a not so high quality or an unfavorable quality story about yourself, you just have to look outside and ask yourself these questions. Do I feel seen? Do I feel heard? Do I feel loved? Do I know that I am wanted? Do I feel wanted? Am I wanted? Do I feel deserving? Am I living my best life? Am I getting everything that I want in life? Are my relationships harmonious and loving? Do I feel like I am a priority? Ask yourself these questions, and depending on what the answers will be, you will discover what the quality of the story that you have about yourself is. And if the story isn't of the highest possible quality, then that is an opportunity for you to start up-leveling the story that you are telling about yourself. And when we're changing the stories, or when we're changing our self-concept and the stories that we have about ourselves, it can feel like in the beginning it's a lie. But let me tell you something. These negative stories that we have about ourselves, that's the lie. We've been lying to ourselves for most of our life. That's if we have a shitty self-concept. The true story that we want to be telling, that I am loved, I am wanted, I'm chosen, I am valued, I'm respected, I'm admired, I am smart, I'm intelligent, I am abundant, I can have whatever I want in my life, I am living my best life. All of those things in terms of our story that we have about ourselves, that we have to tell ourselves first. This is not about going out and saying, hey, I'm worthy, or hi, I'm respected. You have to respect me because that's the story I'm not telling. That's not what this is about. We go within and we start working with this new story that we're telling ourselves, because that's what creates the shift in consciousness. And when the new story that we tell about ourselves becomes embedded in our consciousness, that's when reality will start to reflect it back. And depending on how long we've been telling these unfavorable stories about ourselves will determine how quickly that can happen. And so that's why we don't want to look at time around this. We just want to focus on really changing the stories that we have about ourselves to being amazing, incredible stories that you would want to, if you loved a person more than anything in the world, what would you want that person to believe about themselves? That's how we have to be with ourselves. We have to tell ourselves the most amazing things. We have to become our bestest friend in the whole world, where we are just saying the most amazing, loving, caring, generous things to ourselves. We are telling the best possible stories that we possibly can tell about ourselves, and continue with that new story until it becomes a natural story, until that story becomes more natural than the other story, which was really, let's be honest, bullshit. Changing our self-concept is the most important part of this work. That's the foundational work in this. You have to really up-level the story that you're telling about yourself before anything else, because everything springs from that. All of your reality will start to really show up in the most amazing ways when you have that strong foundation of who you are. So I encourage you to start looking at what's the story you're telling about yourself to yourself. And if it's not up to scratch, awesome. That's where we get to start reinventing ourselves by changing the story, changing the messages that we tell ourselves, and using amazing positive affirmations in which to do that. I'll do another video on that. And really just up-leveling the story, because that is the most important story that you will ever tell about yourself. So you want to make it the best ever. Okay, that's all I wanted to share. I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have, please feel free to share with family and friends. You can subscribe to my channel as well. I'd love to have you, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.